Okay, I don't have very much data on my phone, so I have to do this quickly. So we're going to take a cursory and repetitive look at some of the cultural bubbles that have sorted to the top of the problem chain, such that we are able to isolate and review them because of the amount of time that they have been around. And I also want to outline a formal archetype that I need to say is explicit. It needs to be explicitly aggressive. It needs to be a transgressive archetype. So creatively dissimilar from other things that I'm always going to say are dumb because of the power of this archetype. They're dumb as fuck. So any of that other dumb stuff, Nietzsche, right? Not doing that. So we're going to start with a question that we need to deal with. Once we find out that our culture has been organized teleologically, and I'm not saying that this can't happen within ancient cultures, I bet it did all the time, and I bet it was the source of a lot of problems. But once we find out that there is some teleological spearheading going on, what are our options? Okay, so it's also important to consider that with what vehicle are we using, ideological or otherwise. We could have been handed it down from a family or another set of ideas. What vehicle have we been using to investigate the teleology? So saying that a Christian apocalypse is good or bad because of why? What are the idea functions that have been existing in our head that allow us to do that subconsciously? So the version of this that bothers me the most is that it seems like the powers that be in our world are metaphysically invested in the apocalypse, and a normal person with a not so vastly unfamiliar hierarchy of needs, as one of these people, might hear something like that and subconsciously couch it under familiar cultural archetypes like the activity of going to church or the activity of going to see an apocalypse themed film like 2012 or something. A normal person who is a emotionally disturbed guy is going to hear that, and it's going to stick inside their subconscious mind as a constant potential threat to their own regulating activities. So let's briefly list several similar problems which are all oriented around this same constant potential for threat. So 1, the environment is deeply toxic. 2, the culture inside the toxic environment is deeply unstoried and unconcerned with metaphysical emotions and unteleological grand historical narratives, which I need to separate from teleologically oriented historical narratives that are spearheading towards apocalypse or some kind of point, because those things are always going to be uncreative and tyrannical. And I'm not saying that tyranny can't be creative, but I just make the distinction. So those thought forms cause unconscious pain and stress, and that constant unconscious pain and stress inevitably causes cultures that are complicit, passive, and ultimately shameful. 3, there's a gap between the environment, the materials in the environment, and the individual's ability to self-determine in between an ever-evolving knowledge of these environments, which means that the more that you learn about the specific type of wood in your area, and the more that you are forced to use those types of woods in your area, the more that your ability to problem solve in a specific way and not a general complicit way is going to grow you into something that is distinct and creative. So also what I'm saying here is that we always live inside the corpse of somebody else's deeply unstoried world. So the houses we buy, the things we build, they're always unspecific and constantly and automatically gearing you towards potential for a type of career or world that you didn't have any choice in manufacturing. So the structures we live inside of are horribly angled, pathed, and financialized. Nobody knows what they're doing, and the reason why there aren't any tangible revolts against ideology is because the patterns that the mechanical, cold overlords use to further separate themselves from their own unexamined unconscious are made out of people that look like us. So at almost every level of the patterning, you will raise a hammer and you're going to see you'll see yourself, you'll see people that are good, you'll see regular people. So it's impossible to organize material resistance when the patterning has been ingrained for so long. So what you have to do is become a terrifying art personality, and you have to become indeterminate if you want anything to change, and you have to use that indeterminacy to grow other people who are indeterminate. And there's a risk associated there that I think is at least important to outline a little bit, which is that we might be wrong about the teleology. So you just have to kind of constantly keep that in your head. God might be real, he might be evil, an evil psycho, but teleology might be real. So if that unfortunately becomes the case, you might have to find yourself doing a kind of Promethean thing, and maybe you figure that out by yourself later on. But you need to transgressively, constantly make shit up. You need to tell stories. Like Roland Barthes is saying, this cultural thing is like all these other cultural things, and then you need to grow a kind of play system that is so severe. I really, just as a person, don't want it to be not severe. It needs to be constant, severe, and deeply fun. It needs to be very playful and fun, but the rhythm of it and the speed of it needs to be totally unfamiliar to things that are cold and mechanical. So cold, mechanical ideologies are going to see the speed that this is happening at, and hopefully it won't register to them at all, so that it gives you more time to play and invent new mythologies. The other aspect of that sacrifice is that there's a pretense involved there. You know it's a mythology, but if you don't want to live in a world that is teleological, you have to take the L. So somebody a long time ago might